Hey everyone, welcome to Zon in Canada. I'm your host, Jesse Betteridge. This is a podcast exploring the connections between anime and Canadian media. And this is, normally we do episodes that focus on specific anime that have had a unique cultural impact or unique cultural importance in Canada. This one we're talking about today kinda does.
I mean, it almost did.
It almost did. Yeah, we're talking about Witch Hunter Robin. And the reason we're talking about Witch Hunter Robin is because it is the only one of the debut anime series from YTV's Bionix block that we haven't talked about on this show yet. And we are now at the 20th anniversary of when that block debuted. It started September 10th, 2004. And joining me to commemorate this very important occasion, I'd like to welcome Sammy back to the show. Sammy, how have you been?
I have been great. I'm kind of excited to talk about this, and also kind of sad because it's not as good as I thought it was. Oh, it's still good. It's still good. It's just not like, oh my god, I can't believe it's Witch Hunter Robin. Yeah,
See, it's an interesting show to go back to because it's in a lot of ways better and worse than I remember, and also the way that we've watched television has changed.
Yes,
so that this is not really a type of show that would be made today, either in here or in Japan. And your perspective on this is one I'd really like to capture, because when this show started running on TV, I was 18, or I was already in university, so I was just outside of the actual target demographic for the Bionix block, which was YTV's 12 to 17 targeted anime and action animation block. But you're about 5 years younger than me, so you were.
I believe I was 14 turning 15, which is like, that's the age of Robin in the show. It is exactly who they wanted to watch this show.
That yours is a very good perspective. I was hoping to find someone who discovered the show through YTV and is like still a big fan today. I do not think that such a person exists, unfortunately.
There's probably someone out there. Come on.
Out there. Okay.
The person
someone
that bought all this stuff at Hot Topic, that person, they do exist.
Is that person suited for a podcast? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe they'll come out of the woodwork after we release this episode. That's how it happens a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Witch Hunter Robin, a show. It came and went. It was a bit of a big deal when it was airing, and then everyone just sort of immediately forgot about it when it was replaced by Dot Hack Sign the following spring. And incidentally, that is kind of how people watch anime now. Maybe that kind of was a game changer in a way, because we were now transitioning away from that routine where every anime that aired on TV was precious. Even if it got rerun into the ground, you would just treasure everything. And now it's just like, oh, this show is over and now there's another show on. Wow, there's so much anime. They can run 2 shows back to back and not have to go back and rerun them. That actually ran against the way I think a lot of people understood television to be. So it marked a bit of a change.
I feel like this show was made to sell DVDs, honestly, because of how many like little things that you could miss in an episode if you blinked or if you looked away. I was having a lot of trouble watching it in the background because things would just happen. I'd be like, oh wait, hold on, go back here. Like I was rewinding and I'm like, I can't actually watch this in the background. This is not a background watch show, even though it is so slow. Right?
We both watched this. We'd watched the whole thing, but we watched it in the background, so we didn't watch it correctly. This is a show you have to sit down and watch.
Yeah, like every single week, you had to be glued to your TV set and being like, "Oh, okay, so this person's not actually what they're saying is not what they're saying." You know what I mean? Like Dojima, everything that Dojima does, don't trust Dojima.
There's a lot of nuance to the show that you won't catch the first time, and is not going to be obvious if you're not paying attention. It's a very slow burn kind of show. It's as binge watch material. It's actually kind of terrible because you're not even if you're paying attention to it, even if it has your full attention, and you are just watching devouring the episodes back to back, which is how we're all expected to watch content these days. It's not very satisfying, because even in most episodes of Witch Hunter Robin, there's really not a lot happening. It's very it's slow, and it's
Can I say a word?
yes.
The word that came up the most when I was looking at forums and everything. Are you ready for it? Atmospheric.
Oh yes, yeah,
Atmospheric.
it is atmospheric. That's really the focus of the show. I mean, it kind of presents itself as a mystery box, and it is kind of a bad mystery box because it has mysteries and it has revelations, but they're all either super predictable
Yeah.
or not really satisfying. But that's kind of not the point, because the idea is that you watch one episode of this show a week. You carve out that half an hour every
Mhm.
week. You sit down, you watch Witch Hunter Robin, and in the case of the YTV broadcast, you're watching it as like the chaser to super melodramatic shows like Gundam Seed and Inuyasha, and then it's capped off with this program, and it's a show that's meant to be watched one episode a week. You digest it, even though there's not a whole lot you have to really reflect on, but you just
Mhm.
kind of soak in the atmosphere, soak in the aesthetic, and you just kind of enjoy it for that half hour. Then you go back to it the week after, and it's pretty easy to pick up on what was happening the week before. It's not, again, a super complicated kind of plot.
Except, except I remember this. So the Methuselah episode where there's a lot of revelations
Hmm.
happening about like, oh, this is this and oh no, she's like 400 years old and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I remember watching that at a hotel room because it was my sister's volleyball tournament and my parents and my sister kept talking really loudly and I'm like, I can't hear my show. And there were no what do you call it, closed captions or anything like that, so I missed everything that happened in that episode.
Oh
So I
well.
was pretty much screwed over the entire time. I was like, "Who's that? Why are they doing that? What is this fragment of wisdom? What are they talking about?" Like later on. So I remember being so confused in the latter half of that show because I'm like, "Why is Robin like super powerful now? I don't get it. Why did she just like light that guy on fire? I have no idea what just happened." So if you missed that one episode, I'd say you would be screwed. Um, Unfortunately, that was my experience.
Yeah, I don't know if they were doing like the Thursday night repeats at that point for Bionix shows. I think those came later. I don't remember.
I
I
have
should
no
know. I
idea.
should remember this. But yeah, there were one episode a week. You had limited rerun opportunities. Again, different from what you kind of expected of a lot of Canadian shows on Canadian TV at the time. Maybe let's step back a bit and just explain, I guess, the plot of Witch Hunter Robin, which is it's supposed to be medieval hunts, but moved to modern Japan, and everything still kind of follows this medieval European aesthetic. But of course, the quote unquote witches are based on genetic powers that emerged in humanity and eventually just kind of takes over a person's brain and causes them to be evil,
Yeah,
if they can't keep the
with an
powers under
awakening.
control. It's not a horror series. It is actually again, atmospheric supernatural police procedural, and the main character is Robin Cena. She is the half Japanese, half Italian nun, who has very distinctive handlebar hair,
Okay,
and
so hold on one second. I don't know if she's a nun or if she was raised by nuns.
uh, so yeah, she was raised
Is
by
that
nuns. So
is
I
that ever
get
cleared up? Because she wears the nun like outfit.
yeah,
I'm like, I don't get it. There's
but
a lot of
she
mysteries entwined in mysteries and like stuff that just never gets explained in this series. Sorry to cut you off. Keep going,
oh, that's
keep going.
okay. That's okay. Um, but yeah, she has these supernatural genetic powers, allows her to light objects on fire, and she is a craft user. It is worth stressing that even though that she is designated as a witch hunter, she is not a witch, because there's a difference between that. And what is
For
that
some reason.
difference? It's not, we don't think about that.
No.
And she is basically associated with an organization called Solomon, which exists to hunt and capture witches in a humane manner. And she's transferred to the Japanese branch known as STNJ. I do not understand how STN stands for Solomon, but that
It's
seems,
something.
yeah,
It's always something.
yeah. And
Buy
the
the
first half,
DVD. They will explain it.
yeah, I think there's like liner note little
Exactly.
inserts on the DVDs. And the first half of the series is basically functions as a procedural with the team searching for witches who have been consumed by this power, and the second half delves into like the conspiracy behind this Japanese branch of Solomon, STNJ, and how it ties to the witches and how it ties to Robin herself. So yeah, I know you mentioned that this show was made to sell DVDs. I have to say, I didn't follow it when it was airing in Japan and being fan subbed here, but I saw I saw advertisements for the series when it was being released by Bandai, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. I got to do the thing that you're supposed to do, and buy these DVDs and add them to my collection because if you don't remember or if you weren't around back then, this is kind of how anime was being marketed. There was just sort of a assumption that, or an unspoken assumption that people were watching shows on as fan subs, and then they would later buy the DVDs of the shows that they would like. But that's not how it was marketing. They had to ostensibly push this idea that, oh, you are blind buying this show 4 episodes at a time, without having any way to properly sample it beforehand. Even though this is functionally not how it worked at all, because there was no online streaming, and when a show got broadcast on television, either in the States or Canada, usually the DVD release had already started before that, and then the TV broadcast would lag behind it. So it was all kind of ineffective, and it was kind of amazing that it worked that way at all. But I was buying the DVDs, and when they announced that it was going to be on YTV, or when there was just an indication that YTV was interested in it because they had kind of teased it a few months before in one of their Kid Trend reports. Me and many nerds like me on the internet who just wanted nothing more than to see anime on TV went nuts. And I found it validating because, like, yes, this show that I'm spending money on DVDs is now going to be on TV. And I think I actually wound up watching most of the show on YTV instead of on those DVDs. And I don't have that DVD set anymore. And I do kind of regret it because those old Bandai DVDs had a
Hmm.
bunch of interviews and other special features
Oh,
that
do
are
they?
not on the current
Ooh,
Funimation
because I have one.
Crunchyroll. You
I
have
have one.
one.
It's in my basement. I
Oh,
should go grab
cool.
it.
So, yeah, because there are interviews and special features on those DVDs. They are not on the new release. They are also not on YouTube. And man, I wish that I could have watched those in preparation for that. So, actually, if you got one of the DVDs of
I
the
do have
old
one. Yeah, it's
singles,
in the
yeah,
basement. I don't
see
know where,
if
but
it's
somewhere.
got if it's got special features, see if you can rip them and put them on YouTube because they're not
Ooh.
there right now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Uh, but Sammy, I'm based on what you said, I'm assuming that you discovered this show through YTV, or had you
definitely.
yeah.
Oh hell yeah. And I've got the fan art to prove it from back then. Oh my God. And I dated them too. And I have one that is Kakashi wearing Amon's cloak. Yeah, that's pretty great too. No, I was trying to consume as much anime as possible as a teenager. And if there's a new anime on YTV, I'm watching it pretty much, except for Gundam and Ghost in the Shell. I never really got into those two, but everything else.
And what was your impression of the show when what was teenage Sammy's impression of Witch Hunter Robin on
Oh my God.
Friday nights on YTV at 10:30 p.m.
So I had such a crush on Michael Lee, the hacker guy. I thought he was so cute. Um, and Amon, I had a huge crush on him too, and I pretty much did not pay attention to anybody else. Just like these boys are cute. Oh my God, I don't know what's happening. Why is he shooting a gun? No idea. Robin's pretty cool. I remember watching the theme song and thinking that the animation for when she brushes up against the TV was really, really weird.
It
Like
is weird,
nothing like the show, right?
and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, exactly. You showed me why this week, and I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, so this show has I think it has a fantastic opening. It's very different from most anime openings. It doesn't follow
Mhm.
any of the cliches. It almost seems more like a music video, and the reason for that is because it is a music video. It's a complete knockoff of the music video for Madonna's "Take a Bow." You can actually find a side by side comparison of the two. And that's where they drew it from. And like I always say with this kind of thing, yeah, maybe they borrowed a little too much in this case, but I think that opening really adds to the show. I think it sets the mood. I think it sets it apart from other anime. Sometimes you just can't argue with the final product.
Hmm.
But yeah, it creates an impression for sure. So, but there's a reason why you thought it felt so different from the actual television show.
Yeah, it was very eye-catching, but also Robin is kind of off model in that sequence, especially when she's like on the TV. I'm like, that doesn't look like the girl in the show at all. Right?
So, Sammy, hold that thought for one sec. I just wanted to sort of very briefly go through some of the history of how Witch Hunter Robin came from Japanese TV to Canadian TV.
Sure.
So it is a 26 episode series. It was produced by Sunrise, and it first aired in Japan in 2002. So this show was directed and developed by Shuko Murase. So this guy had actually been working at Studio Sunrise going back to Gundam 0083. And the Gundam franchise is, it's kind of funny because you said Gundam was just something you never got into, but he's actually very tied to that franchise. He did
Damn
key,
it, you got me.
yeah, he did key animation in 0083. He was an animation director in Victory Gundam, and he did the character designs for Gundam Wing. And actually, very recently, he's still one of the top guys at Sunrise Studios, and he directed that first Gundam Hathaway's Flash movie. And there's apparently supposed to be a second one, which presumably he's working on right now, but there's been no updates on it. But outside of Sunrise, he's also directed Ergo Proxy, which is that was kind of like a spiritual successor of Witch Hunter Robin. And then he also did the anime adaptation of Gangsta, which is also a very visually rich manga adaptation. That's really good. So the development of Witch Hunter Robin began not long after Adult Swim launched in the US, and then they quickly added anime to the lineup, most prominently Cowboy Bebop. And there was a lot of speculation that a big part of sort of what led to this show getting a push, probably not so much in terms of production, but in international marketing, was the expectation that it would air on Adult Swim, and that would be, oh, this is a perfect fit for US TV. And it was really popular when it was being fan subbed and aired in Japan. And then it went through that usual process I mentioned before. You complete the TV run is completed in Japan. Then they start working on the English dub. Then when they're mostly done working on the English dub, then they start releasing it on DVD singles that have 4 to 5 episodes each. That didn't happen until late 2000. Like, we're at a point now where this show has kind of come and gone in Japan, and late 2003 is when we're seeing it on DVD, and then finally in early 2004, that's when it started running on Adult Swim. So if you thought that this was a show destined for that block, that was quite a journey. And the funny thing about its Adult Swim airing is that it was actually considered a big flop when it aired on that network, or on that channel. They actually ran it 5 nights a week. They didn't run it weekly. They were shoveling it out Monday to Friday, and it's often, and the show failed as a result of that. And actually, the failure of that show is often speculated to be why they moved all of the anime premieres to once a night on Saturday. That's where the anime remains to this day on Adult Swim in the US. There's only been a few exceptions to that. So going back to that idea that Witch Hunter Robin is best enjoyed when you watch it 1 episode a week.
Right.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that. That's terrible.
They did it like this is not a Monday to Friday show. Hell, like,
No.
even buying the DVDs and watching them 4 to 5 episodes in a row, that's not the way to watch this. I mean, when you buy the DVDs, you can watch it however you want, but I think a lot of people are just going to dive in and watch the whole thing in one go or very quickly, and it's just like that's not how you're supposed to experience this show.
Yeah, not to harp on it, but like there's just so much that it wants to leave you with to just
Yeah,
marinate on.
exactly.
Like, oh yeah, think about that for a little while. And just
Yeah.
like every single night, that's Dragon Ball Z. That's oh my God, something exciting's happening, and oh my God, can't you wait till next week? No, this is not that show.
Yeah. And like, even then, Adult Swim has run shows weekly now that would have been better if they had been able to run them Monday to Friday. But the thing is that when this was running in the US, that's when YTV was developing the Bionix block after, Inuyasha had been a big success. And they were working with a company they were familiar with, of course, Bandai. to license a package of shows. And it's interesting because obviously Bandai was probably offering them a whole bunch of different shows that they could choose from for their block, because I would imagine Gundam Seed is the main thing they were looking for.
Mm.
But YTV indicated their interest pretty early and mentioned it in that Kid Trends report, and that kind of drove up interest a little bit, at least in my weird online communities. But it really seems clear to me that this was like this, even though the fact that it was getting a U.S. broadcast probably helped, but I think that this was carefully selected over other options as a curated lineup. And I think that like the late John Rooney, who became programming director at YTV shortly after this, and as I mentioned on the show before, I had him on this show years ago, and that episode I still think that I didn't ask. I wish I had picked his brain a little more at that time, or had a deeper discussion, because there's so much more he could have talked about, because he was so instrumental in all this stuff at YTV and at Teletoon and at every youth broadcaster in Canada. He did it all, and he was instrumental to much of the nostalgia you would have for youth television in the early to mid 2000s or late 2000s. That whole decade, for the most part, which is a critical time for a lot of us. And actually, I think that I think he might have been the one who really honed in on this, but because shortly before he passed away, he posted a picture of his home video collection, and you could see he had the DVD singles for this series, so it was on his radar. And he apparently played a key role in putting together that original schedule. So I think it's not just a matter of picking up Witch Hunter Robin, but also knowing that's the perfect show to cap off the block after Justice League Unlimited, after Gundam Seed, after Inuyasha. And it's also interesting because this took one of Inuyasha's old time slots. So this fell onto the eyeballs of a lot of younger viewers who otherwise would not have sought it out. And I think that's a big reason why I think this show came as like a surprise, or had a surprisingly positive reaction from people who didn't entirely know what to make of it, but had not really been exposed to something like it before.
Just growing up as a young woman, I was not interested in fighting robot shows. I was not interested in Gundam Seed. I didn't really care that the pilots were young boys, I guess. I wasn't into that, And as the protagonist here is a woman, just like in Inuyasha, I feel like it was a really good choice there. And also there's some young boys that are kind of cute in this show too, like Michael Lee. And Haruto's real cute. And Amon, he's Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
But, just anime Keanu Reeves.
There's a lot of overlap between the two that isn't immediately obvious. And you've actually, now you pointed it out, like, there is.
This is for boys and girls. Like, this is a good show that's like, okay, Inuyasha's out of here right now, like you said, but this is gonna have crossover for both boys and girls.
And that's the reason that it was actually touted as a rating success when it started on YTV's lineup. Now, I would imagine those ratings probably went down over time, because a show like this isn't going to hold on to everyone. But it definitely. Yeah.
You missed that damn Methuselah episode.
It was a great kind of stepping stone into something new for, I think, a lot of the Inuyasha addicted youth at the time.
Or Cyber 6.
Yeah.
Very, very tied into Cyber 6. We got the glowing liquid happening here. We got someone who doesn't really know if she's human or not.
Yeah.
We got the guy she's working with, but he doesn't know, like, if he loves her or not. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think even though it's very different from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think it would attract a lot of the people who would have been drawn to something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well. It's sort of that confoundingly more mature thing on the youth network, even though it's suitable for family viewing for the most part. There's not a lot of graphic content in Witch Hunter Robin. I think that also was a big reason why they went for this one, for the initial lineup, because it's not too risky in that regard. But yeah, so Witch Hunter Robin kind of was a little more successful on Canadian TV, because I think they did more right with it. Also, the U.S. broadcast didn't run the opening credits either. They skipped that.
What?
Yeah, they didn't. And I think that's a kind of a mistake, because
music video you're talking about.
The music video, yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's the best part of the show.
And I was going to ask you about, now that we're reflecting on this 20 years later, and we've both gone back and watched it, maybe incorrectly. I think maybe the best way to prepare for this episode would have been to watch this over the course of 26 weeks leading
Oh
up to the
God.
podcast, because I knew when this
Oh God.
podcast was going to be, and digested it properly. We did not do that. But I think that we can bring still bring more perspective to this now. And what is your impression of the show now?
So when I was a 15-year-old girl, I didn't realize how Japanese this show was
Mm-hmm.
and how set in Japan it was. Um, yeah, Japanese soup spaghetti, I think, was
Yeah,
one of the things
they
that
call ramen soup spaghetti, which is a weird, because this isn't like an overly localized dub, and it's just like, why would you prefer to ramen as Japanese soup spaghetti?
it's
That's
clearly a ramen.
yeah.
Clearly a ramen stand is like, yummy soup spaghetti.
The
And then
sign
they
says
say
ramen.
soba noodles, you know?
Yeah,
Like it's like,
yeah,
okay, why are you picking and choosing this? I don't get it. I would love to talk to the localizer or whatever and be like, why did you do this?
yeah.
But not that.
It's a show that's rich with all of these sort of medieval European aesthetics. That's actually one of the things I wanted that struck me the most going back to it. It just, this show looks so good.
It does
You
look
have
really
to
good,
remember
yeah.
that this was an early DigiPaint show from
Mm.
aired in 2002. This is an era that is notoriously for looking awful for anime. Most shows
Hmm.
that were made around this time, they look like absolute crap. The colors look like crap. It, like, you try to upscale into HD, and then it's just like a disaster. It exposes every problem because they just didn't know what they were doing with digital animation at that time. This is a huge contrast. Like, it is incredibly rare that you find a cut of animation in this show where the characters are even a little off model, which is why it was funny when I thought when you mentioned in the opening credits how Robin looks kind of off model in that shot. It's like, that's like the only part. When you watch the actual show, the characters
Yeah.
always look the same, and they
I mean,
always look good.
she's clearly modeled on Madonna
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
that's not your face,
Yeah.
Robin. You know, I know what your face looks like. It's not that.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the show is not always, super action focused all the time, but whenever it does get that way, it always holds itself together. The colors, they're, I want to say they're like drab looking colors, but they choose all these earth tones, and the colors are selected so well. They always pop in every shot. Like it
Oh
always
yeah.
just makes, I'm always amazed, just like, wow, that looks so good, especially for when it was made. I think the version that's on like Crunchyroll now, I think it is just like the DVD quality rip. But you watch it on an HD TV, it still holds up.
Yeah.
It's really amazing, and then it integrates CGI into it too. That's a little dated. Most of the
The 3D
interior,
backgrounds are kind of crunchy and a
yeah,
little like if they get too close, you're like, oh boy.
yeah, and it's
Oh.
mostly interior shots
The edges on
in
there.
like the in like indoors that they
Yeah,
usually
in
do
the
that, where it's
STNJ.
in, yeah, STNJ and various other locations where it's usually kind of a little dark and dim.
Hmm.
But for the most part, it is like spent again. You remember this is 2002. It's all
Yeah.
integrated very well when you take that into consideration. And I didn't find
Yeah.
it just like, usually shows that era, I find the CGI to be distractingly bad, and that
I
was
think
not the case with this show.
them taking the duller color palette and making everything very dark was very smart on their
Yeah,
part. Usually when they make it a bit brighter, it's like, oh, you can see that like
yeah,
jetting out there, but like they're like, oh no, we're gonna make this moody and
yeah,
atmospheric, and it's just gonna blend in and
and
it'll
it's
be
and
fine. And
like
also the Orbo being as bright as it is, it always shines when they have it hanging from their neck, so it's really nice to
yeah,
always see that. And then Robin has a pendant that's never explained.
yeah, it's featured in the closing credits. They never actually explain what her
They don't
pendant
say
is.
anything about it.
Um,
So mad.
yeah,
Like, okay, they're gonna talk about it this episode, this episode, this
yeah,
episode. It's episode 26. They never say anything
they
about
do
it.
not.
I think it was her mother's. I think that was the connection, is that it was Maria's.
Hmm. Yeah,
And then she has it. So I think that's like her only connection from her mother. That's all I can glean from this.
yeah, but we
That's
we,
it.
we always say the show's atmospheric, but that is baked so deeply into it. It's not just a matter of pacing. um, and and things like that. It's like baked right into the color palette, right into the designs. Everything is so well considered on a visual level, and I think and I mean back in this era, we saw so many shows that tried to do this drab color palette kind of thing. Most of them came from Gonzo Studios, and most of them are absolute crap. I would say that the only shows that were successful at this were like this show, Witch Hunter Robin and Wolf's Rain. And Wolf's Rain overall, I will admit, back in the day, I said I preferred this over Wolf's Rain. I think I was wrong. Wolf's Rain has more thematic depth to it, more interesting things to say about like persecuted persecuted cultures. Witch Hunter Robin doesn't really have a whole lot to say thematically.
I know that
But
the director really wanted to do something about Joan of Arc.
mhm,
That's what they said in one of the interviews. Like, I want to do
yeah,
something about Joan of Arc, and then they didn't name it Witch Hunter Joan. They renamed it Witch Hunter Robin. So
Witch Hunter Robin,
yeah,
all in capitals.
all in
That
capital for
yeah,
some reason.
that's a stylistic thing that's more you see more in the Japanese literature, but it's always
Yeah.
like Robin, all in capital letters. But also like in addition to like the show looking good, it's so consistent. This is a 26 episode series. There are no clip shows, and it looks consistent from beginning to end. How many anime can you say that about? Not very
Uh,
many.
I don't know. I don't know.
Uh,
They had some budget. They had some
they
budget.
did. Like I wish.
Especially on the what shit hit the sorry the stuff hits the fan episode. Like the
You can
action
say
sequence
you can
there is
say
like,
shit. It's
oh
okay.
my God.
Uh,
Oh, the shit hits the fan episode there.
yeah,
I was like, what am I watching? Is this an anime? Am I watching live action right now? Like the cuts are all very, very good. I'm like, what did they take this from? I actually made a post on Twitter about like, does anybody have any like documentaries about Sunrise at the time and with like the different movies or anything that they were looking at for reference? Because hot damn, this looks gorgeous. This is amazing. Like this is really, really good. And then it goes back to being like atmospheric, you
yeah,
know. But like still, damn, it was really good.
yeah. And like I wish Ergo Proxy looked this good, which was the follow up show from Murase. That the first episode looks good in that show. But you get to the second episode, it just immediately falls apart. Like one of the most
No.
important characters in that show is introduced in episode 2. He's introduced off model. I don't think you really know what he's supposed to look like until near the end of the series.
Oh, I
And
gotta watch it still.
yeah, I recommend it. It's a neat show. That's a show I really want to go back to again now that I'm a smart smart person who finished grad school. It's just like, oh, I'll understand Ergo Proxy now. Um,
Nice.
but I think that show would have a better reputation if the animation hadn't just gone to crap so quickly. So again, it's not just a matter of Shuko Murase being a master of consistent visuals. He needs the resources to do so, and I don't think Man Globe Studio was able to back him as well as Sunrise did, unfortunately.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another,
Sunrise had Gundam money.
yeah, and this was being made at the same time as Gundam Seed. Interestingly, a lot of the the plots and plot elements and revelations weirdly similar to Gundam Seed, which was being made at the same time. Uh,
They shared a coffee room.
a lot of stuff at Sunrise, the basic world building and plots kind of come from common writers' rooms a lot of the time. So it's not too surprising to see things bleed together that way. Um, another really another part of the show that I think is really maybe kind of underrated is the music. Uh, Really great soundtrack in this. It's a little repetitive, but I think it's always very effective. The music was actually by Taku Iwasaki, who actually wound up who was later the composer for Gurren Lagann, which
Hmm,
I didn't know, and was like,
I didn't know
oh,
that either.
that's very different approaches to scoring, but also equally effective. And the character designs are also great there by Kumiko Takahashi. So she was the character designer both for Cardcaptor Sakura and also for Call Me Tonight, which is this weird little OVA from the 80s about this guy who who turns into a monster when he goes too long without masturbating, and then he calls this kind of sex hotline and gets help from this person. It's a weird fun little thing on her filmography. I'm just like, oh, she did character designs for that. That's very different from Witch Hunter Robin.
Yeah. I mean, Witch Hunter Rock. I did like how they looked like real people. It was really grounded in realism. They didn't have like one set outfit that they were always wearing, you know?
Yeah, it's
I did really appreciate that it was like very like, oh, these are people, right?
yeah. There's not a lot of exaggeration. The characters, they're not very expressive, but you would I think that really helps you admire anytime they make facial expressions that are even a little exaggerated. Usually from Dojima or Michael, they're the only ones who go a little get exaggerated just a little bit, but it's never that much
Hmm.
because it's all very very restrained.
What's the name of Amon's brother again? That guy too.
So yeah, Nagira. Let's talk about the
Nagira.
let's talk
Oh yeah, great
the
voice.
characters and cast. So this dub is okay. You have Carrie Walgren as Robin, and I don't think that was a good fit for this character. I think Akino Watanabe had a lot more nuance in the way that she played the character, whereas Carrie Walgren, she's better at like really expressive characters, and it felt like the director was just telling her this like be more lifeless or
Yeah.
because
I
that's
mean, it's
kind of how she
hard.
comes
It's
off.
a 15-year-old girl, man.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not
Um,
what 15-year-old girls are like. But
there's very little in this show. Like they outright state that she's 15 in the first episode, but
hmm
there's really not a whole lot that characterizes her as as a 15-year-old.
she's Joan of Arc, you know?
Yeah, Joan of Arc. I guess that is maybe kind of the reason. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, that parallel completely explains why they do that, despite the fact that she's not characterized as
hmm
as a 15-year-old in any way beyond that. Most of the other cast I found was fine. Crispin Freeman as the brooding, mysterious Amon.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
So good.
so good.
Love that.
Dave Wittenberg as Michael. Your
So cute.
favorite?
Loved it. Did his job.
Yeah, Michelle Ruff as Dojima, the very untrustworthy aloof girl.
hmm
Does yeah
The
she
spy.
plays it perfectly. Yeah, she's a
Sorry.
spy.
Are
It's
we okay
fine.
to talk
We
about
can we
spoilers on
can
this?
sorry. We can spoil. Dojima's a
Okay.
spy
Yeah.
from Solomon headquarters, and she you can't trust anything she says in this. And yeah, I think that so you had Lex Lang as Nagira, who is Amon's half brother. So he's another performance that I wasn't really wild about. He always gives the same performance. The only character I find it works with is Goemon from Lupin the Third. I didn't like him very much as Nagira. I think someone a little more lively would have been better as that character. But
I really liked him, but I also didn't see the original.
yeah,
So I've got nothing to base my like or dislike on, but I really like the what is it, the timbre of his voice for this character. I
yeah,
felt like his voice really fit the guy, and I also saw them as brothers really easily.
yeah. I thought it. So this is something that kind of bugs me about the writing in Witch Hunter Robin. And like I said before, it's not really trying to be a mystery box. You're not supposed to. It's not hoping that you find the revelations really shocking or anything, because that's not the point. Again, it's a show you just kind of marinate in once a week. Yeah,
Buy the DVDs.
buy the DVDs. The writing in Witch Hunter Robin, it does something that bugs me about a lot of anime, where it just pointlessly withholds information that
Mm,
is obvious or is not really not really a revelation at all. Like the fact that Nagira is Amon's half brother. It's just like they waited a
mhm.
really long time to say that for no apparent reason, and it was like, it was obvious. The fact that Robin's roommate, it was the boss slash villain Zaizen's daughter. It's
Mhm.
just like, why did you withhold that information? Like the plot gained nothing from
Yeah.
holding that bit of information back. In fact, there could have been a lot of opportunity to mine that in the much slower first half of the series, but they just hold it back till they get into the main conspiracy in the second half, and then of course the the quote unquote revelation that the witches and the hunters are in fact the same. Their powers
Yeah,
are
what the
come from
hell?
the same place. I guess that these people are cops and they're kind of indoctrinated into thinking
God.
into a certain way, but
Yeah.
it's like so obvious from the beginning,
No,
and
I'm a
they treat it
crafty
like
player.
this. Yeah, and they treat it like this big revelation halfway through, and it just that might be maybe my biggest complaint about the plot in this show is that,
I
that
mean,
you're treat. Yeah.
A lot of the people on the staff are really young as well. I think that the oldest person on staff is 25 that is like a hunter and stuff.
Hmm.
So I think it's Amon is the oldest at 25 and
25.
then
Yep.
like yeah. So I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense because they're all kind of stupid.
I mean,
They're not getting this.
you do have. I mean, that is true, but I mean, there's also the very common anime thing where the characters are all actually 10 years older than what their stated ages are. If that was the actual intention, it didn't come. I feel it didn't come through very well because I know what to expect from anime ages.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Um.
I thought they're all young and there's nobody old on the team because they keep dying, you know?
Yeah.
Like they keep cycling through these hunters because
Yeah.
they get like their psychological trauma or whatever happens to them.
Yeah, because
Um,
it's inevitable.
'Cause-
So,
yeah, because they
yeah.
only started using Orbo like 5 years ago, I think they said, because that's when the other bullets, the witch bullets were outlawed.
Yeah.
Or was it 15 years ago with Robin? I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the
I
timeline.
can't remember what the timeline was exactly.
But I think that the STNJ was at least being, what is it, since Kate had her like meltdown?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Kate
I don't
Kate was
know.
yeah,
Wait,
Kate
I'm
was
gonna go with
the
like 5 years.
Kate, yeah, it hadn't been. I think it had only been a few months since Kate had had her meltdown, and then was they brought in Robin as the replacement. But I guess this is something I hadn't thought about before, that they are all very young, so they don't they don't know the actual day-to-day stuff going back very far, or how much things have changed over, say, a period of 10 or 15 years.
Yeah,
Whereas the Orbo is very new, and but to a lot of them, it's just, this is just the standard procedure, and it's
right.
part of capturing witches.
Yeah,
Whereas it is,
Haruto calls Karasuma like really old, and she's like, I'm not an old maid yet. And I looked up her age, and it's 21.
21. Yep. I mean, again, that's common anime stuff, but yeah, the fact that they are all so young is just like, yeah, that actually kind of makes sense with the way STNJ is you know keeping people in the dark about the projects. And of course, also the other big revelation is that the bodies of the witches they capture is being used to produce the Orbo, which helps suppress the their powers, and when they're capturing the witches in a cruel cycle. Another thing that again seemed really obvious, and yet everyone acts really shocked about it at the end.
Yeah, what the hell are they doing at the factory? Why are they calling it a factory? Why are you taking them to a
You
factory?
never question what the
What are they doing?
factory is.
Are they putting blocks together and then the squishing them and then that makes the Orbo? Or like what could they possibly be doing at the factory that's humane? They're just not thinking.
Yeah.
They're so young and they're like, yeah, we're doing good. I don't know.
Yeah. But, again, not these revelations are not the point. You gotta not always going to be a satisfactory answer to everything, but
Mm.
you can still enjoy every episode for what it is. I find the first half is definitely, no matter how you cut it, it's a little harder because you have these. I mean, you have these Monster of the Week episodes. Often, in a lot of cases, they're actually not resolved at all. They sometimes just kind of end abruptly. Sometimes they present a mystery that's really obvious, like the girl painting in the park. It's just so painfully obvious from the beginning that she is, the witch in this case.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the show trying to lead us to saying that this is not the conflict. Like the
Yeah.
actual conflict is the morality of these people hunting down these witches,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like it's delicately giving us breadcrumbs to be like, okay, but why is it okay that they keep capturing these people and they're taking them away, right?
You
That's
you have a better take on it than I do. But yeah, that's a good.
it's boring. It's
Yeah.
boring, but it's like, oh, but why are they doing this? Why are we okay with
Yeah.
watching them do this? And Robin herself is just like, when she meets the little girl, right in the episode that she displays like a witch like materialization happening when she makes a ball from some sand.
Hmm.
She's like, would I have to hunt this little girl down?
Yeah.
Eventually, if I keep working for this company, if I go back to working for this company, I should say. And it's like, oh, the morality of what they're doing, they're not really thinking about it because, as says, he says, yeah, we have to do this work, otherwise we're dead.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that they all have the ultimatum given to them by The guy that comes in the middle of the series and he's like, "Okay, you're fine. You haven't awoken.
Yeah.
You can work for us. You don't have to die."
Using the process that is a cross between Blade Runner and The Exorcist, determine if you have become a witch, or if yeah,
Inquisitor.
the Inquisitor, yeah.
Inquisitor. Yes, the Inquisitor comes in and he's like, "No, you haven't awakened yet. You can work for us." And they're like, "Okay, cool. I guess I'm working for you." Um, yeah.
I think if you watch a whole bunch of these Monster of the Week episodes back to back, it makes them worse because you're just comparing them against each other, and it just sort
You
of
soiled. You soiled. You soiled.
yeah.
You soiled.
um, and I think it just kind of gives you the wrong. It's just not the right. It's just not the right way to watch it. I think if you
Right.
just kind of just take it 1 week at a time, let the show go where it's going, it's easier to enjoy that way.
Also, if you watch it again, you're gonna find stuff, which is
Yeah.
again with like, buy the damn DVD. We need money. Please buy our DVD because if you watch it once, you're gonna miss everything. If you watch it twice, you're gonna get it, right?
There, one other question I had, and I should have like posted this on social media and asked people. It's just like they always go to the bar Harry's, and that is a wild design on that place. It has to be modeled after something, but I don't know what. There has to be like some sort of like futurism architecture that they're modeling that after. I kind of wish I had looked into that, but I hadn't been able to.
Maybe someone can post it in the comments below.
Oh no, yeah.
Maybe if they know.
If anyone knows, please. If anyone has looked into this, please let me know. The guy who runs Harry's, his name is not Harry. I think everyone always calls him Harry.
Oh, I know,
he
right?
is
Yeah.
Yuji, but it seems everyone always calls him Harry. But yeah, he had one episode in the first half that I thought was really good
Yeah.
with his son.
And he's a witch too, right?
I think he was a seed. I think.
No, I think he's
Oh, he
like
was a witch.
alluded to be a witch who's actually just
Right.
hiding their powers. I didn't pick it out. I've heard a number of people talking about it on forums. Like I watched it myself, but then I was like, okay, what are people saying about this? That might be wrong too, but I don't know. It's meant to
No,
like,
that does seem that's kind of does strike me as what they were maybe kind of going for. So there's one other quick off-topic thing that I wanted to talk about with Witch Hunter Robin. Sci-Fi Channel in the States was developing a live-action version of this that was actually going to be filmed in Toronto. It got reported in, the news sites you'd expect it to be reported on, and it was actually going to it was greenlit. It was going ahead, and it was actually going to be starting pre-production in Toronto back in about 2005 or 2006, I believe. But then the project just kind of mysteriously vanished, and no one's sure really what happened, and people just kind of stopped talking about it after a certain point. But one of the more interesting things that have happened in my time doing this podcast is that I had Ian Whitcomb on a previous episode, and he had said something on Twitter about the live action pilot of Witch Hunter Robin, which was being written by Joe Menosky. So Joe Menosky, he was a writer on Star Trek: The Next Generation starting in season 4. He also did writing for Deep Space Nine and quite a bit of Voyager, and he's currently a writer on For All Mankind, which is a new Ronald D. Moore series. But Joe Menosky actually emailed me back in about 2000 because he had seen Ian talking about the Witch Hunter Robin pilot, and he basically just knew that he had been on my podcast, so he decided to reach out to me because that was a point of contact for him. And he's just like, hey, I got this story Bible and 3 scripts that I wrote for the live action Witch Hunter Robin. Do you want them? And we were just like, yeah. And he just sent me this stuff, all this conceptual work for the sci-fi live action Witch Hunter Robin series. And he actually gave me some information about the background of that as well. So apparently Joe had pitched the whole thing. He had really gotten into anime in the late 90s, and was watching lots of fan subs. I know that Star Trek: The Next Generation is kind of famous because it had anime references hidden in its earliest seasons. He's not connected to any of that, but he did. He was an anime fan, and he was friends with Roy Lee, who was he was the guy who basically made the American versions of, or the producer that helped get The Ring and The Grudge, and also The Departed off the ground, getting just American remakes of Asian films, and he was working with him, and Roy managed to get him connected with producers in Japan, and the idea of doing a live action Witch Hunter Robin sort of materialized there, and they got Sunrise on board, got the Sci-Fi Channel on board. They accepted the pitch. They wrote a 2-hour pilot and a Bible and a couple of other scripts, and they were actually all ready to go on pre-production. I think they were at a point where they were going to start getting things going, start casting it. It had been reported everywhere, but unfortunately, what happened was Sunrise executives pointed out that the contract that they had written had actually not been finalized, and this had actually been months before, and so they couldn't go ahead with production because technically the deal didn't happen, and there was like a miscommunication. Something was lost in translation in the way the deal was done, and the show and the whole project just got canceled because of that. And I'm just like, oh, that sucks. Having this entire live action Witch Hunter Robin, which was going to happen, just died due to a clerical error. I sent you the scripts, Sammy. Did you get a chance to take a peek at them?
I did. They're very long.
They are, well,
98 pages.
They're
Oh my
they're
god.
1 hour. I mean, they're 1 hour episodes.
Pilot. Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I've went through them again a little bit before doing this podcast as a refresher, and it's actually quite faithful. The characters, some of them have their names changed, some of them don't. It's now set in Midwestern United States, obviously because it's Toronto. So when you're in Toronto, you say that it's the Midwest.
They took a Toronto anime away from us.
They did.
God damn it.
And conceptually, it all seemed like it's pretty faithful overall. The plot seems to more or less be the same. They do play a little more with the idea that craft users are witches. From what I've gleaned, a little better than the anime did. They're not. It doesn't look like they're building up to like make it a huge revelation. They're sort of leaning into the fact that it's obvious. There's some humor that doesn't seem to quite fit, but it's not all bad. There's one very memorable part where Amon is ordering fast food at a drive-thru, which is an amusing thing to imagine because that's not something he would do in the anime at all. But it is something he would actually do because he is a human being who eats food. So
But from the Big Burger, I don't know. I don't know about that. The goth guy,
as far as
like, I want my hamburger.
yeah, it's kind of funny because live action adaptations, it seems they often seem to be like at the conceptual level is where most of the weakness is. I think there's a lot of cases we've seen where you have a script or a concept that's written that veers heavily away from the original, and then it's like later in production where they try to add elements of the anime back in to salvage it, and it never works. Here it seems that the bones and the structure are kind of in the right place to begin with. But with something like Witch Hunter Robin, the question is, like, what is it going to look like? How are you going to do the how is it going to be filmed? How is the atmosphere going to be handled? How is the pacing going to be handled? What's the what are the colors going to be like? What are the visual aesthetics going to be like? Those are all the things that would be more critical in determining whether a live action Witch Hunter Robin would work. And I am
2005 Toronto was like goth central of the world. I don't know if anybody knows this, but like Toronto, like Queen Street, that was it. If you were a goth, you were there. I was not. So I was not, but like I have a lot of friends who are
you observed,
in their 40s now.
You took notes. So
they were so into the scene back then. There were clubs, there was everything there. So there was stores, like goth stores, like it would have been so good. It would have definitely been set on Queen Street. Swear to God.
I think maybe this is something that would have developed in an interesting way if they had been able to just fully embrace the Toronto filming location. I think this may have just it would have just sprung to life in a way that we may not have expected, and maybe it could have been something special. Who knows?
It looked good to me. Like they aged up Robin to 20 already. I was in. I was like, thank God.
Yeah, everyone's aged up about
thank God
5 to 7 years. So it's just that's
if they want to do idea. If they want to do a romance with Amon and Robin, okay, all right, she's 20 now. Great.
Yeah, it's Joan of Arc parallel. Whatever. Let's just age them.
Yeah, it's fine. She's a young ingenue. She doesn't have to be 15. It's fine. Oh, I did want to mention one thing. The thing about the names in the
Oh
series.
yeah, yeah.
And Amon's name is interpreted as the hidden one, which is really funny because he's always popping out of nowhere.
Hmm.
He's always hidden. So that was really good. Robin, it means bright or a sign from God. And I think that's kind of fun because at the end it's revealed that witches are actually just gods that have fallen due to the genetic anomaly
Yeah.
disorder, and she's touted to be the Eve of the new world. So I think that the name Robin is pretty suitable. I think they did the right thing there. The not call her Joan, Witch Hunter Joan, I think would have been too on the nose.
Actually, what are your thoughts on this idea of Robin being the eve of a new generation of the genetic witch anomaly?
I think, yeah.
Of her being like the secret, this secret experiment the whole time. I I I kind of thought it was one revelation too many.
I don't think it was fleshed out that well
Yeah,
because it's like, okay, what do you mean the Eve? Does she
yeah,
have to now get pregnant and then have a legion of witches that are hers,
yeah.
and
And
then the
this
rest of the witches can just like fuck off? Like what's going
and
on with
this
that? What do
this
you
this
mean?
goes back to the question of whether she is a nun, which was also not
Yeah,
clear.
exactly. Is she a nut? Because they picked the wrong girl for that. If she is a nun, I don't know. I think she was raised by nuns. I don't see her wearing a cross unless that pendant is supposed to be a cross. I don't think it is. I think she's just raised by nuns. I don't know though. I don't think it's never like explicitly said on the internet. I have to look at my DVD. Yeah, I think it's a little weird. Like she's supposed to save all of which kind by being pregnant, essentially, is how I read the ending there. Like, okay, all of Robin's offspring will now be fine, but everybody else kind of sucks and they all turn crazy still. Like, what is she meant to do? Is she meant to heal them through her powers? Is she like is this a season 2 question? Like what is she can hear all of the suffering of witches before, right? But like they never get into like, okay, but what's she gonna do with this? I feel like that's definitely a season 2 thing. Like, okay, she can do something
Yeah,
instead of like just get pregnant, you know.
I don't think they intended to do any more of this. Like I think this is just a yeah, you can just ruminate on this. We're just gonna leave it at that.
But the teaser, the cliffhanger ending, you don't do a cliffhanger ending if you don't want a season 2,
Is
right?
that a
That's how it
cliffhanger
works.
ending? I don't know if
It
that.
is. Like somebody shows up and you don't know who it is, right?
I think
Who is that?
it's just supposed to cycle back to the beginning. It is kind of weird how, they expose the whole Orbo conspiracy going on in STNJ, and then they're just kind of going
Right.
back to the status quo as much as they can. And,
Okay, we're hunting again.
yeah,
Like what? You're all trapped still and you're all fine with that? That's why I feel like there's got to be a season 2. Like great,
yeah.
but like they're still hunting witches and they're still killing witches. So it's a weird ending because they're like, okay, yeah, okay, we dealt with Orbo, so at least we're not draining witches to use their power against them anymore, but we're still killing ones that are actively harming everyone. But that's everyone, you know? Like how is
It's
she meant to heal everyone? And I think that is a season 2 question. Like, what is she doing?
it's atmosphere. We just enjoy the
Atmosphere.
atmosphere of the show, and we can
It's
leave
just
it
the
at
atmosphere.
that.
Ooh, I just remembered this. The director of the show is interested in making more. So this was an interview, I think in
Oh, okay.
2021, I think it came out, that Shuko Murase, he said that he's interested in continuing the world. So yes, season 2, it could happen. It could definitely happen. Let's re-record this podcast and say that we loved it and we just want more. How's that? Like, okay, okay, I would love a cut of this show if it was 14 episodes. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many like crow cawing scenes that I don't need. I understand that the crow is cawing, but it is 2024 and I got stuff to do right now. I'm really sorry. Atmosphere, you
Yeah.
know? But there's just so much that could just be cut out of the show and it's made to sell
It's hard
DVDs,
to imagine, even if it were a continuation of this show, for any show like this to really get made anymore. Like they just don't make anime like this that looks like this at all anymore.
Yeah.
Or when they do, it goes really badly. I don't know if you saw Metallic Rouge. That was like
No.
a Bones 20th anniversary project. It was supposed to be like harkening back to the types of shows that like studios were making in the early 2000s, and it's just bad. It's boring and pointless, and yeah, maybe it's better if if we don't try to go back to this approach.
I would love a Witch Hunter Robin movie. How's that? I would love a movie.
Sure.
I would love a movie where they come in and they try to dismantle Solomon from the inside and they're like, "Hey, you can't do this." And like Robin finds out something about herself that she can heal all witches and then it's actually just Madoka Magica. I don't know. Like she just, "Oh, I'm actually God." And then she zaps all the witches out of existence. I don't know. Something like that. Maybe that's where they got the idea. Maybe they were like, "Oh yeah, Witch Hunter Robin was great. Let's do that but better." And then Madoka Magica happened. I don't know.
I think we have to end it there.
Okay, yeah, let's
Okay.
end it there.
All right, Sammy. Where can people find you online or on social media or wherever you're hanging out these days?
I am at ZKArt pretty much everywhere. ZeekayArt. And I'm a cosplayer and content creator, question mark, kind of thing. I go to conventions and I document how I have a good time there or I don't have a good time. And I try to help people out fursuiting, cosplaying, and I'm also a really big nerd and I love a lot of Canadian content, so you'll see a lot of that posted there too. And it's at Z the Raccoon on TikTok. At ZKArt is my backup account that got shadow banned a while back, and I don't post there anymore. So that's me on the internet. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. Oh my
Oh,
God,
it's
I love
always a
talking to you.
pleasure having you on, and I mean you'll be back too because we have more Bionix
Yeah.
discussion to do, but not today because I'm too busy. But yeah, thanks for tuning in to Zun in Canada. You can reach me on Twitter at jbetteridge and also on Blue Sky at jbetteridge or email zunandcanada@gmail.com. The theme song is by Ultraclystron and can be found on his album Packet Flood, which you can find at ultraclystron.com. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast app of choice, and I'll see you again.